Councillor Miller. Councillor Miller. Councillor Miller.
Yeah.
We're just checking your audio.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And I can hear you. Okay, so I'm going to mute you again to the start of the meeting, and it'll just be a couple minutes. We're just waiting for 1 or 2 more.
Sounds good.
Hi, Councillor Kushner. It's Kristen. Do you hear me? Councillor Kushner?
Yes.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, you're the last one. We're going to get it started in just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, and
All right, hey. We're getting one of those alarms on our phones. The alarms on our phones is one of those emergency alerts, and it's just alerting people who have been outside of the country are returning home should stay isolated for 14 days. That's the message that we've been getting across. So I hope all of council and staff can hear me. I just want to start by thanking Evan, Kristen, and Kyra in the clerk's office for setting this technology up. I know they've been working with all of you as counselors as well, and they've done a great job. So I think this is going to be a good, effective way in dealing through this issue. Good afternoon. Welcome to special meeting of council for Friday, March 27th, 2020. There won't be a singing of O Canada, nor a moment of reflection or land acknowledgement. This is obviously a meeting that we're trying to work out some things. We'll bring those things back into our meeting in a future date. I'm going to start with a brief mayor's report, and I like Bill's fingers that he's putting up there. That's good. This is good. Just some opening remarks is we are meeting this way today because of COVID-19 is in our community, and we're finding new ways to connect and continue with the business of the city like many of you are doing from home. As at this time, I want to emphasize that the most important message is stay home as much as possible. I'm here at City Hall with a few key staff members. The rest of council is participating virtually through Zoom technology. We are staying at home and listening to the public health experts who are guiding us through this pandemic. Starting today and over the weekend, you'll be seeing and hearing more through local media about the Stay at Home campaign that has been brought forward by public health and Niagara officials. Many of you have received a recorded phone call from me asking you to do the same. And the message is simple: stay at home as much as possible. By staying at home, you will keep everyone safe. By limiting how much we leave our homes, we are helping to protect our loved ones, vulnerable people, and healthcare workers who are working around the clock to keep us all safe. We need to listen to our public health experts, wash our hands frequently, and disinfect high traffic areas. Physical distancing, keeping at least 6 feet apart from others, and do not gather in groups. Social distancing does not mean social isolation. So check up on your loved ones or friends and family with phone calls and emails, text messages. Isolate yourself for 14 days if you're returning home from being outside of Canada. This is mandatory under the Federal Quarantine Act, so that has now been enacted by the federal government. And the Niagara Regional Police are working with local authorities to ensure people are following through on this. Do not stop at the grocery store. Do not stop anywhere when you return home from travel. Go home immediately. We know many of you have already been following this advice, and we want to thank you personally. If you have not, it's not too late to do the right thing and protect our community from COVID-19 by staying at home and limiting your contact with people. None of us are invincible. Now is the time to do your part. This is not the time to go to parks, take your kids to play dates or host parties. We've closed our public parks, our play structures. We've closed our dog parks. We've closed our skateboard parks. We've closed our facilities as a city. These are challenging times, and challenging for everyone. If you're feeling stressed, anxious, or confused, reach out to Niagara Region Public Health for accurate information. Mental health supports are also available for children, youth, and adults across the region by phone and online. You need to go to the Canadian Mental Health Association website, the Niagara Distress Center, and Pastone Mental Health. There's a lot of great stories that are being shared in our community. I don't want to go on too much longer about all the things that are taking place. I'm just going to skip. There's just a lot to read, but I'm just going to skip all that. And I just want to turn it over to Shelley and our CAO, Shelley Chemnitz, to talk a bit about the EOC that has been set up for the better part of the last 2.5 weeks, who has really guided us through this crisis, and who was ready to go from day one. In fact, they had been preparing for the better part of the last month. So I'm just going to turn it over to our CAO, Shelley Chemnitz.
Thanks, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Just where to begin, I'd like to just start very quickly with some thanks, both to Council for their patience in us taking a little bit to get to you. We've been in very busy, ever-changing times, and we've really appreciated as a staff the support that you've given us to continue working through what we need to work through. We also thank the community and council and all staff for heeding all that direction that you just recently heard from the mayor, and that we're hearing from our provincial and federal leaders, that it's very important that we all take this very seriously. I do also want to thank our senior leadership who have been working very hard since we enacted had our partial activation of our EOC. It was always known to all of us, but it's been very evident that they all are very in tune with the departments they are running and the services that they're providing and their staff. And this certainly has tested that fact, and we certainly see that they are all very in tune and have been working with their staff. And I personally am very thankful for that. And I know they're thankful for each other. As you're aware, we had a partial activation of our EOC a number of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago already. You see one other newer face that you haven't seen on our in our council meeting today, and that's Brendan McMullen, our corporate emergency management coordinator. You have been familiar with the various updates that he's been giving you. He has been a very critical resource for all of us these last few weeks, to keeping us organized, keeping us documenting what we're doing, and organizing for us. He has a high level of experience in these types of activations, in activations of emergency control centers or emergency operations centers, and we've been very thankful for him. So I really did want to say from our EOC partial activation, just to let you know the objectives that we've been working through. There's 4 main ones. First being that the city needs to provide, continue to provide essential services to our community and the residents and businesses there. In times like this, that's even more important, that they can count on us to be there for those things that they need. To do that, we need to make sure that we are taking care of the safety and security of our staff. So that has been an objective, as well as the safety of the community. Third, we're also looking at the financial stability of the organization. We see and we hear in the news reports of the economic crisis that many are facing, and the city certainly is also has this will have significant financial impacts on us. So in everything we do and the decisions we make, we're looking also to our financial sustainability in the long term. And of course, we're here to help the first responders and the organizations that are centered to this particular issue and situation that we're going through, Niagara Health or Public Health, the Niagara region. It has been, over the last number of weeks, a very significant balancing exercise for us. We want to make sure that we are able to continue to provide the essential services that are necessary, while at the same time ensuring that in our operations, the things that we do protect our staff and also do not contribute to the work that the first responders are doing in this instance. So that's my general update at this point.
Thank you, Shelley. And again, thank you for your leadership, as well as to the senior leadership team and the EOC for all the work that they've been doing over the last 2 weeks. I'd also like to thank our extended staff here at the City of St. Catharines, from the maintenance crew that's going around and cleaning all of our facilities, to all the employees who are providing our essential services in the community. I know a couple of councillors have seen them out there repairing water break mains and everything else. So they're working hard and under very challenging times. As well, I want to thank council for getting out the information. I think that's one of the biggest roles that you can play right now, is continuing to get the information out about COVID-19. Public health is the authority on this. This is not a City of St. Catharines. We're not the authoritative body on COVID-19 in terms of what's happening in the healthcare system, what's happening in terms of the information being disseminated into the community. They are. So making sure that your residents know that they can go to the public health website is really important. And as well to our healthcare workers, the grocery store folks, the people who are working in the grocery stores and the pharmacies, they deserve our praise and thanks for, really being the ones out there that are ensuring not just our health, but also the essentials of life that we require are being provided. And also to our truck drivers, our EMS folks, the police, the ones who are out there still making sure that our communities are safe. So I just wanted to echo what our CIO said in terms of the people who are making a difference in our community. I've had daily contact with our CAO. We start the day at first thing in the morning with a conference call, and then throughout the day there's a number of touch points. I'm also in regular contact with the regional chair Bradley, as well as our public health team. And I have regular conference calls with our MP Chris Biddle and our MPP Jenny Stevens, as well as the other regional mayors. And I'm also part of the LUMCO Large Urban Mayors Group, which we have a weekly call that's with ministers of the province of Ontario to get understanding of what other communities are going through. So I just wanted to share that. And before we head into the adoption of the agenda, I'm just going to highlight 2 things that our staff have done an awesome job at. Our recreation staff and those of you who are familiar with our older adult centers. So they've been closed since the city initiated its emergency command center, operations center. Our recreation team has been calling all of the older adults. So there's about 900 members who are part of the older adults community. And our recreation team has been making sure to call them, each one of them, reach out, and just as a touch point, see how they're doing. So that was a city initiative. Phil Christie and his team took the initiative to do that. So that's one. And then the other one is our museum staff. Those of you who are online, the museum staff has taken all of our, as much as possible of the history of the city and put it online. And so they're doing virtual tours of the museum for kids and for families so that they can see the history. So those are just two examples of how our staff have tried to adapt to a challenging situation. And there's a lot more stories. Our economic development team, what they've done with the rapid response initiative, what they've done with Invest STC, trying to get people to support local businesses that are still open. These are all initiatives that they came up with. And so it shows the depth of leadership that's within the city of St. Catharines. And I'm proud of that. And there's a lot more work ahead of us, but I think we're in good hands with the team that we have. So I'm just going to go look to the adoption of the agenda, and can I have a motion to, is there any, I don't think we're going to be changing the agenda because it's been published. There's nothing to add to it today. This is a special meeting of council. I'm going to ask for an adoption of the agenda. Councillor Sorrento. Yeah, he's got his hand up. Councillor Sorrento, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Phillips, you got your hand up. Thank you. And then verbal confirmation, just put your hands up, all in favor. We'll just do that. Opposed? Okay. And any conflicts of interest on this one? Okay. Reports, we have 4.1. And to put the report on the floor, I believe Councillor Sorrento.
So moved, Mr.
Moved. Seconded by Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll turn it over to Miss Douglas. Oh, no, Miss Sullivan, Deputy Clerk, to provide an overview.
Good afternoon. So the report you have in front of you is to amend the procedure bylaw to permit electronic participation in meetings during an emergency declared locally or provincially. This amendment is further to provincial legislation passed last week that changed the Municipal Act to allow members of council who participate in meetings electronically to be counted towards quorum. The legislation also permits municipalities to call a special meeting to update their procedures to allow for the electronic participation, and indicates that councillors who participate in that special meeting electronically can be counted towards quorum. So what the amendment does, it's during a declared emergency, it enables councillors to participate in the meeting electronically, and for those councillors to count towards quorum. It allows for modifications to specific procedures depending on the nature of the emergency and the methods available for electronic participation. And it outlines how modifications to the regular meeting schedule may be made. This may be necessary to deploy resources to other critical tasks or to call council together at different times to make decisions. During a declared emergency, the amendment applies to all bodies that are covered by the procedural bylaw, which includes council, general committee, and the budget standing committee. Today, the public is able to watch the meeting on YouTube, and after the fact, they'll be able to watch it on the city's website and Cogeco. The public was encouraged to email or call members of council in the clerk's office with comments or concerns prior to the meeting. The amendment has been structured in such a way to enable us to make improvements to how we apply this technology over the coming weeks, and to ensure that as a city, we can adapt to the emergency as it continues to evolve.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Ms. Sullivan. Do we have any questions? So what you do is you could either put your hand up on the screen or you could put your hand up on the button. So I got Councillor Garcia and then Councillor Williamson. Councillor Garcia.
You can hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, I wanted to thank the clerk's office for putting that bylaw together, and I think they have addressed the issue of the meeting being open to the public seems to be a satisfactory way of doing it. What I don't feel has been addressed in that bylaw or amendment is the issue of public participation. I think the amendment is silent in that issue, and I think that we certainly need to clarify how public participation would be handled. And to me, public participation has to be exactly that. I don't think that we can contemplate discussing or debating or approving any proposals, issues that would normally require public participation until such time as proper public participation is allowed.
Evan, you're going to be looking at the screens unmuting, right? So I don't have to do it myself. Okay, so I'll turn it back over to Ms. Sullivan or to our clerk, Bonnie. So we'll go with Ms. Sullivan first.
Yep. So the requirements of the act is for for the public to be able to observe the meeting and its proceedings, as well as hear the counselors and the decisions and discussions that are being made. At this point in time, we're continuing to monitor best practices for involving the public in council meetings and proceedings. Ideally, we would only bring forward items that usually have very little public interest or don't generally have speakers, but we will continue to monitor those opportunities to see if we can bring those items forward, that we would do so with opportunities to make delegations or have their comments heard from all council and the public.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Councillor Garcia, a quick follow-up.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. I'm still concerned, like when you say that you would try to bring forth only items that would not have a lot of public interest. I think we should have it very clear in the amendment and maybe in the staff recommendation to specifically say that issues that would normally require public participation would be deferred until such time as normal public participation is available.
Okay, so we'll take that under advisement, Councillor Garcia, and unless you want to make an amendment, but I do think that for the purposes in front of us today, that this procedural bylaw electronic participation has been, I think, very well put together. I'll look to Councillor Williamson.
Possible are shared. And obviously things have changed. I'm reassured somewhat by what the Deputy City Clerk has said, that we're going to deal with mainly issues that aren't controversial or where there wouldn't be public delegation. So I think to a certain extent, we'll have to trust. That being said, it seems like we have even greater latitude to hold meetings whenever we need to, sort of at the drop of a hat. So I don't know that centralizing authority necessarily, and that's kind of the theme of some of these items, is really necessary. So I hope that that's the extraordinary exception to the rule, that staff is going to take it upon themselves to make decisions, except to deal with public health and issues directly related to this crisis. And I don't see any great harm in pausing some of the regular business of council. We've got an extraordinary situation, and I think people understand that, and there's lots of upheaval going on. So for us to hit the pause button, I don't think is a problem. Obviously, there's essential services that need to be delivered, etc., and I'm happy with that. But I am concerned about centralizing too much authority with too few people. Thank you.
Can I just remind councillors that we're dealing with 4.1, which is amendments to the procedural bylaw, permit electronic participation during an emergency. So if we can keep the comments just to that, it'd be greatly appreciated. Councillor Harris and then Councillor Sorrento.
I guess my issue here is, can everyone hear me first of all? Yeah, okay. I guess my issue here is we're in a crisis. We're talking about things that haven't happened yet. We need to trust staff. And if we have the ability to call emergency meetings, we can make decisions then if it's something that needs public input and things like that. So I think we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit here. So I would prefer to approve this motion now. And then if something does come up, we can always meet again electronically to discuss it. We have more important, well, not more important, but I think our focus right now should be looking after the community, looking after our neighbors and things like that. So that's it for me.
Councillor Sorrento, and that's it on my list.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with both of my colleagues that have already spoken, and I think the business of the city has to go on, and it has to go on as quickly as possible. So if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mayor, I believe I'm moving this motion. Is that correct? Maybe through you to the deputy clerk? Okay, and so if Councillor Garcia is going to make this an amendment, and I'd like to speak to that too, Mr. Mayor. You know what? I didn't even see this coming. I don't know what procedurally we have to do, but you know, this just came up, and I'm not going to accept it as a friendly amendment. I don't want to stand in the way of the business of the city, so I'll defer to the deputy clerk and her.
There hasn't been an amendment made, Councillor. So this is the 4.1 legal and clerk services. And this is amendments to procedural bylaw, permit electronic participation. This is just allowing us to be in this kind of format.
Oh, sorry, Mr.
So,
Mayor. Speaking of the delegation. Okay, it's all good.
Okay,
I'm good.
Councillor, I'm gonna go to Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a quick question with regards to the technology. I know it's just, sort of up to the discretion of the clerk's office. Do we think we're always going to, or do we have to use video technology, or is it possible to do telemeetings or something like this where we don't have the video, or as the province said, we're not allowed to do that?
Good question. I'll turn it over to either Christine or Kristen.
So through the chair, the province, it does allow for other methods in terms of accountability and ensuring the public that it is council who is meeting, it is still the same people in front of them. Providing video does provide that level of accountability for the public. They can see, okay, that is my councillor, that's who's making that decision. Given that they can't see us in person because of the directives for physical and social distancing, this is the best alternative.
Councillor Miller.
I guess this is follow-up. Like, for example, right now, Councillor Harris's video seems to be out. I mean, are we concerned that every time there's a bug or every time the connection is delayed a little bit, I know it mentioned that we can pause the meeting. I'm a little worried we're going to end up pausing every meeting 10 or 12 times while we get video, because you're right that we do need to see that it is Councillor Harris there who's saying these things, for example.
I'll go back to the deputy clerk.
I think so far today it's worked pretty well. We can see 12 out of 13 councillors. I think the councillors are also learning what devices work best and will be better prepared to improve it for the next meeting as well. So we'll continue to make minor adaptations and modifications as we learn from our experience today.
Okay, Councillor Phillips.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I do think that the program we're using is working great, considering I'm not a techno wizard by any chance, and I'm here. My understanding is that all we're doing right now is asking council to allow us to do this as a meeting. Is that correct? I hear what Councillor Garcia is saying, and I think that can be discussed also maybe later, but I'd like to call the question on this right now.
Okay, to the clerk to call the question.
Okay, so I have, as a mover, I have Councillor Sorrento. As a seconder, I have Councillor Phillips. So your mic will be unmuted, and then you can just confirm yes or no. So we have
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Counselor Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Kushner,
Yes.
Counselor Littleton,
Yes.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Phillips,
Yes.
Counselor Porter,
Yes.
Counselor Cisco,
Yes.
Mayor Senzik,
Yes.
and that is carried.
Okay, thank you very much for that good debate. 4.2 Legal Click Services, and this is the general delegation bylaw. This bylaw has been designed after bylaws that have been approved in a majority of the municipalities in Ontario. It's related to the delegation bylaw pertaining to COVID-19. And I'm going to ask, we have a motion from Councillor Littleton to put it on the floor, seconded by Councillor Cisco. And then I'm going to ask Ms. Salter, Director of Legal Clerk Services, to provide summary comments before council discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This draft bylaw authorizes a broad delegation to the CAO during the emergency and when it isn't possible or practical to hold a council meeting before action by the city is required. It's quite common in an emergency situation, certainly one where the period of the emergency may be quite prolonged, to pass this sort of a delegation. We've been monitoring other municipalities, and other municipalities across the province are certainly doing so. Some of them are frankly broader than what we've proposed to council, as ours is restricted to only when council cannot meet. The situation that we're in is changing very quickly, and there's a lot of uncertainty with respect to what we may be dealing with and how quickly we have to respond. The purpose of this delegation is to ensure that we're able to provide that response as the need arises and continue with the critical business of the municipality.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salter. And so we have a mover and a seconder, and I'm looking for questions from council. Any questions of council? Okay, we'll go Councillor Williamson and Councillor Garcia.
Mayor, through you,
Yep,
Mr. Mayor.
there you go.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, my earlier comments probably applied more importantly to this one. I hope that we're limited to dealing with critical issues and only when we can, there's a reason that we can't get together. And I said earlier, it seems like we had greater opportunities to get together than we have even normally. Everybody's at home pretty much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I had submitted in writing an amendment to the recommendation, which would hopefully be friendly. And I don't know if we have the ability to put amendments up in any way. All I was doing was adding to the recommendation to enshrine essentially what I guess the city solicitor and Councilor Williamson just said. So I just wanted to ensure that the delegated authority is applicable when, let's see if I can see it. Yeah, okay.
Okay, that's the recommendation, which has COVID-19 in it. Yep.
Okay, and I don't know if they're able to put up what I submitted, but I was essentially adding to that. See if she has it. Yeah, okay. We can enlarge it here a little bit. Okay. Okay, so I was just adding to it, providing that, yeah, we don't need to, I actually went through the bylaw that is attached as an appendix and added all these things, but we can probably cover it to make it simple just in the amended recommendation. So I was just keeping the recommendation the same and adding in red there, providing that in each case of delegation, the actions are clearly deemed necessary for controlling the COVID-19 pandemic, and council is unable to meet prior to such actions being required. The last part about council is unable to meet is something that staff already had in there. And the reason I'm suggesting this is that we're the ones who are here representing the people who are supposed to make the decisions for them. So I want to make sure that we have that responsibility, and therefore we can ensure that anything that our great staff will do because they believe that that action is definitely required in relation to the pandemic and what we need to do to protect the health of our residents, and also that council is unable to meet prior to such actions being required. As Councillor Williamson just stated, it seems like if we're going to be able to meet fairly easily now, and everybody's at home for the time being, so we should be accessible. It shouldn't be a problem of quorum. So hopefully anything major we will be able to meet. But I would propose adding that right in the recommendation if the mover will consider that friendly.
I'll go to Councillor Littleton, I believe. No, yeah, Councillor
Yeah.
Littleton, who moved the motion.
I think the point of the motion, I mean, it actually does, you know, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's all that we're talking about here. And I think that we don't need the extra language. It seems like it's kind of redundant. We understand that we're only delegating authority when we absolutely can't meet on absolutely critical matters. And I think that that's as far as we need to go. I don't mean to split hairs or anything, but I think we're kind of adding language that's already in the bylaw.
Okay, and so friendly or not friendly?
Yes, not friendly.
Okay, and I'll go to Ms. Salter for an opinion on the addition.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The addition actually changes the purpose of the bylaw. I'm concerned that it scopes the delegation to actions that are only specifically in response to controlling the pandemic. That's not the intent of the bylaw. The intent of the bylaw is to allow us to take action that is required in the normal course of the business of the municipality. So it may not be specifically related to something in response directly to the pandemic, but rather the normal business of the municipality. And that was its intent. So I think if you add the wording as it appears from Councillor Garcia, you've effectively changed the purpose of the bylaw, and I think very significantly reduced its value in the circumstances. To Councillor Williamson's point, absolutely the intent is only to use this when we can't pull the council together for a meeting, you know, in a timely fashion. And the intent is that we would do so, but the situation we're in is very dynamic. It changes. The technology seems to be working extremely well for this meeting, but there are limitations to it. And this is really a fail-safe. This is not intended to replace council, but to just provide that extra level of comfort, I guess, that we will be able to respond quickly to emerging situations.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Salter. Councillor Garcia, so it's not a friendly amendment. I'm going to open the floor if you want to leave the amendment on the floor. Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Okay, Evan, can you unmute? Just wait, Councillor. There you go.
Okay. I hear what the city solicitor is saying, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to answer through you. If we're saying this is for when council is unable to meet, I noticed that staff added that in the first number 3 of the bylaw, but even if we don't have the section about providing that in each case the actions are deemed necessary for controlling the pandemic, why, I would like to ask her, can we not have then in the recommendation just the last line, and council is unable to meet prior to such actions being required?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Garcia. Ms. Salter?
Through you, if you look at Appendix 1 to the report, you'll see that that language is in the draft bylaw. It may not have been the exact wording in the recommendation, but the wording of the bylaw itself is that it applies when council is unable to meet prior to such action being required. I think that hopefully responds to your concern, Councillor.
Councillor Garcia, so I think what the the solicitor is saying as well is that the bylaw that we're approving has the language that you're asking for around council being able to meet. The recommendation is simply to accept the bylaw. So
Okay.
adding more language into the recommendation doesn't do anything further to what actually the bylaw is already stating.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the city solicitor, I agree that that language is there, but it's only there in clause number 3. So we have clause number 4, so for example, in the bylaw, where we delegate authority to approve amendments to tax policies, etc. Number 5, where we delegate authority to enter into agreements, and that wording of, and council is unable to meet prior to such actions, it's being required, is not under those clauses. It's only under number 3. That's why I felt they should be in general for the whole of the bylaw.
Okay, I'll go to Ms. Salter.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The reason it's not in number 4 is simply because it specifies exactly what the delegation is. The thing with paragraph 3 is it's open-ended. And that's why that additional language is there, whereas 4 is very clear with respect to the treasurer's responsibilities and the ability to move some money from reserve accounts. I mean, you can ask the treasurer for her opinion. It could certainly be added there, subject to any comments you might want to make on that. And 5 is really just, it's not a specific separate delegation. It's just making it clear that if the actions require an agreement, then we would be able to sign it.
Okay, Councillor Garcia, I think the city solicitor has put a lot of time into this, is making sure that both council and the corporation are being protected during a situation like COVID-19. So again, I'm going to lean towards the expert advice here, but if you still want to keep this on the floor, Councillor, I'll keep it on the floor and I'll open it up to comments from council just on the amendment.
Mayor, just some clarification from the city solicitor. I believe she just said that and council is unable to meet prior to such actions being required could be added to the other clauses in the bylaw. I didn't quite get everything she said. I think she said 4 was very specific, so you didn't need it, but you could add it to 5.
Okay, I'll go to the city solicitor for one final comment, and then Councillor Garcia, you're going to have to decide whether or not you want this amendment to stay as an amendment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, adding it to 5, if you don't add it to 3, doesn't actually do anything, because 5 is a subset, if you will. If we take an action under 3 and it requires us entering into an agreement, it just makes it clear that we have that authority. It's really just a clarification that taking the action, if what that action is entering into an agreement, then we have the authority to do that. It's just to make it very clear that we have that signing authority. So it's really already covered by the language in paragraph 3. I have no objection to adding it to paragraph 4. I don't know if you need to hear from the treasurer on that point.
Okay, I'll go to the Ms. Christine Douglas.
Hello, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think the city solicitor has done a very good job at explaining the intent of this bylaw. It is very specific, in my opinion, with regards to section 4, that we would be only moving dollars around to meet the city's obligations. I think coming up in the next report, we're seeing how we did receive some relief from the province. So I think it is covered off, and I don't think it's necessary to include the additional wording in section 4.
Okay, Councillor Garcia, I'm going to ask you again, just in terms of, do you want the amendment to stand?
Mr. Mayor, I think I'm satisfied with the explanations by staff, so I feel confident that they are definitely doing this in the spirit of what I felt it should be, so I will not make it as an amendment.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Garcia. I've got a couple more speakers on the list. I have Councillor Townsend, Councillor Porter. Are there hands? I had them written down because I saw their hands up. And then
My
Councillor
Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, already got it. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Porter, have your questions been answered?
Yes, thanks. I was going to speak to the amendment, but now I don't need to, so.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Littleton, you have your hand up.
No, the clerk answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, so seeing no further hands up, the motion is on the floor. It's been moved and seconded.
Councillor Williamson does have his hand up.
Councillor Williamson, you did already speak to this once, so.
Just one little question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the solicitor. I just wonder if she could provide, and this may be difficult because the situation's fluid and everything's a lot of upheaval. Is there an example that she could give us where she might need to use, or her and the clerk may need to use this delegated authority?
Okay. To the solicitor or to the CAO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there isn't anything specific that comes to mind at the moment. I really do think this is quite exceptional. I don't anticipate that there would be a lot of circumstances when we would use it. And you know, because we do have the ability to meet and many things as a result of the emergency have frankly been pushed off in any event. This is really more trying to address the unforeseen rather than the anticipated, because things are changing so quickly, and we just wanted to be ensured that we can have that ability to respond if we have to.
To the CAO, is there anything else to add?
I don't. I think both the treasurer and the solicitor have summarized very well. It really is in the exceptional circumstance, and really to move city business forward, if there's something that we do need to have done quickly, then, and certainly there would be reporting to council would be aware what it is we're doing, and we would certainly have the follow-up understanding that we report to council. So it would be certainly an exceptional circumstance, but time has told us that this situation is very fluid and has a tendency to go somewhere we were not expecting. So we want to make sure that we can continue to provide services. Okay,
thank you. That being said, I don't see any further comments, or I don't have a screen in front of me, so I'm relying on my.
Councillor Phillips has a question. Or has
okay,
his hand raised.
Yeah, just so everyone knows, I can't see the screen. All I can see is the amendment. So if someone's putting their hand up, I can't see it. So Councillor Phillips.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering, in response to what the CAO just said, if these measures were required between, say, now and our next meeting, if we would be given an update as to what these emergency measures were and what action was taken, so that we would be aware of exactly what was meant by emergency measures and the fact that we are aware that they were used.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we would be doing that. It would be in all of our best interest to ensure transparency and accountability and everything that we normally have. It's not meant to circumvent the normal policies and protocols. It's just if an emergency needs attention that we can do that. But yes, there would be reporting to council.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. And just a reminder to those who may be watching, council does get a daily update on COVID-19. The Chief of Staff in my office, Julie Rorson, provides a end of day summary of everything that had taken place. So council has been getting everything that's been occurring as in much real time as possible, outside of even sort of city functions, just an update on what's going on at the region as well. So just wanted the public to be aware of that. So I'll look to the clerk, the deputy clerk, to call the question.
Okay, so moving the staff recommendation, I have Councillor Littleton and Councillor Cisco.
Correct.
And then, so we'll call the roll call. Councillor Littleton?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Porter?
Yes.
Councillor Cisco?
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Garcia?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Before I vote, I had my hand up, but nobody, I guess, saw it. I just wanted to say, we just passed something where we could meet electronically. It's up to us as counselors before this delegated authority comes into effect to make ourselves available to actually meet. So I think we're spending a lot of time talking about this. Realistically, it's up to us to show up. So that's all I had to say, and I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank
Councillor
you.
Kushner.
Yes, I did have my hand up too, but was not acknowledged.
So what we'll do is the reason I'm going to stop the vote right there for a second. The reason being is I don't have when our clerk's department puts up the recommendation, there is no secondary screen that says I've got my hand up. So we're going to have to use the technology, and the clerk's office will have to show you in the next meeting how you can actually put your hand up. There's a button that you can press that then a blue hand comes up and I can see it. So Councillor Kushner, Councillor Harris, I apologize because I can't see you when there's a document on the screen.
Thank you. So which button is it, Mr. Mayor?
The clerk's office will take it through in the next meeting, and what we'll do is there will be nothing. If something's on the screen, it'll be there momentarily, and then we'll come back to this view so I can see who has their hand up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kushner. Deputy Clerk?
Councillor Kushner, is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
And Mayor Sendzik?
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, so 4.3 is financial management services, and this is the billing, and this is our Director of Financial Management Services. So within the staff recommendation, the point payment for on-street parking or in a municipal parking lot or garages is missing the word waived, and W-A-I-V-E-D. This word has been added to the screen that you will see shortly. Prior to it coming on the screen, I would like the CAO to provide comments, followed by Ms. Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, this occurred very early on in our partial activation of the Emergency Operations Center. It became quickly evident globally, nationally, and very much so locally that this situation that we're in was going to have some very significant financial and economic impact to our residents and our businesses. And looking at, as I had mentioned earlier, that financial sustainability in our community and in our corporation is certainly one of the objectives that the EOC is concerned with on a regular basis. So we had determined, as we saw others also had determined, that a waiving of and changing of due dates was a necessity for our community. That this does require council approval of it, and hence that is why this report is here the first time that we have you together for that approval. And I will turn over to the treasurer for a more fulsome explanation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the CAO. As the CAO has indicated, the purpose of this report is to obtain council's approval for the additional steps to assist residents and businesses during the COVID-19 outbreak. The April 30th tax installments are recommending to be deferred until June the 30th. The 2020 water and wastewater rate increases effective April 1st are recommended to be deferred until July the 1st. Temporary grace periods to waive the late fees and penalties of water billings and taxes, and also to waive accounts receivable interest and penalty charges. There will also be no late fees on dog licenses and general business licenses. This would be in effect until June the 30th. Payments will be suspended for on-street parking or in municipal parking lots and garages at this time. Parking enforcement is limited to safety-related issues, including but limited to fire routes, accessible parking, no parking areas, and fire hydrants until June 30th. The city will continue to process pre-authorized payments for the monthly tax and water billings as per the regular schedule. Installment pre-authorized payment for April 30th will be deferred until June 30th. There will be no penalties associated with a withdrawal from the pre-authorized payment program until June 30th. And water services shall not be disconnected by the city for non-payment for water and wastewater billings until June 30th. The final tax installment due dates of June 30th and September 30th are being recommended for amendment to be July 31st and October 30th, respectively. And that the Niagara region be requested to defer their payments required by 90 days to align with the change in installment due dates. And also that the region of Niagara be requested to defer their water and wastewater monthly payments until June 30th. The province has deferred education payments for the June and September payments by 90 days to September 30th and December 31st, respectively. That concludes my update on this report.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas, for that overview of 4.3. And I've got Councillor Cisco for moving the motion and seconded by, I believe, Councillor Littleton. And now I'm opening it up. If, as Budget Chair, Councillor Cisco, do you want to have any comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank staff. I think they moved very quickly with respect to a lot of these measures that have been announced publicly, and I think that was the right move. Obviously, there's a lot more questions right now than there are answers. But at least in the short term, staff have made the situation easier for residents and for businesses in St. Catharines. I would simply encourage my colleagues on council to move this forward. I think we made a first step very early on, and it was the right first step to provide a little bit of comfort. We've seen measures similar to this at all levels of government. The province and the federal government have both come forward with their own measures, and I think it's the right first step. There's going to be a lot of conversations that have to be had, but I know right now our staff are busy just trying to put the pieces together. And over the next couple of weeks, obviously, we're going to have some very important conversations going forward. But I think this is a good first step. And again, I want to thank staff for putting it together as quickly as they did and getting these measures out to provide some comfort for the community.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cisco. I got Councillor Sorrento and Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just over here in my email. I don't know if you can see me, but I'm going to ask the question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the treasurer. I see that we're going to be losing approximately $604,000 in lost revenue and waiving penalty and interest payments, Chair, and possibly cashing in some of our cash investments prior to maturity to pay this off. So my question is, Mr. Mayor, to the treasurer, is it better to use the line of credit instead of cashing in our investments? And perhaps if the treasurer can comment on how this will affect our budget moving forward. And I suppose that Chair Cisco just alluded to that with further conversations to come. So those are my questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, with regards to the city's financial situation, as the CAO has indicated, staff is working very quickly to work with all of the city departments to be reviewing the impacts that the current situation has on the city operations. We will be bringing an update forward to council, but at this time, staff is reviewing all the information that we have with regards to the financial situation. We will have to be doing that, looking at that analysis about whether or not it's better to use our line of credit or to, cash a investment certificate early. It really depends on a number of factors. There are some relief coming from the other levels of government with payment deferrals into the month of August and September. So we are taking advantage of all of those. So at this time, we are reviewing that, and a further update will need to be coming forward to council at our next meeting.
Councillor Sorrento, are you fine?
Okay, test. Yeah, my mic just came on, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for the pause. Yes, and I'm very happy to hear, Mr. Mayor, that there is potential financial relief coming from other orders of government. So thank you very much.
Can we unmute Councillor Miller, please? Evan, someone?
I might have muted myself. I guess I'm supportive of this because it's one of the only things we can do, you know, immediately, or one of the, you know, the list of things of what we can do. I'm a little bit concerned that this becomes a precedent, and you know that we have an unknown length of time for this pandemic, this emergency to be going on. Has staff considered how long we can do this for, you know, if this goes on for months and months at a time? And I know property taxes are, you know, essentially our only form of revenue. I know there's a few other little things we get, but basically, you know, will we be, you know, are we concerned we won't be able to provide things like water services and these essential services if we're not collecting any revenue for, say, the rest of the year?
Okay, looking over to Director of Finance.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, staff is reviewing our cash position. We're reviewing it actually numerous times a week. We do process our payments on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as well as we're looking at the cash flow and reviewing all of those payments, as many payments that we can potentially defer without negative consequences to the city. We are doing that, and we are regularly providing updates to the CAO and the Deputy CAO with regards to the city's position. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the councillor is correct with regards to tax revenues being the primary source of the city's revenue stream. We are seeing, though, that revenue stream is remaining fairly strong, which makes us all feel relatively positive in this current situation. And we are providing the supports to the residents if they do need to withdraw from the pre-authorized payment programs, but we are seeing that has happened on a very limited basis to date.
Going over to Councillor Miller.
Thank you for that. I guess, you know, and sorry, this is already included, but can we just be updated on how many, you know, what percentage we're talking about in terms of residents who do end up deferring, even if that's on a monthly basis?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we can do that. We are tracking all of them, but as I indicated, it has been minimal. I can give you a stat. There's been 16 residents who have withdrawn from the pre-authorized water payment and 50 residents who have withdrawn from the property tax pre-authorized payment program. So minimum at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Littleton, your hand up.
Finance. I just wanted to ask if the, I believe it was $2 million from the 2019 surplus budget, if this would be some of the money that we would look at that we deferred and did not move into various savings buckets, if you will, for the rest of council and for the public. If perhaps that money might be stuff, it might be funds that we would use before we look at activating a line of credit or, you know, cashing in some of these bonds or debentures, whatever you're mentioning there as possibilities, if we would use that money first.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the city is looking at, you know, our cash flow on a daily basis here, deferring the payments that we can at this point in time. And as we review our operations, we will be very mindful of the need to use either the city's line of credit or cashing in an investment certificate before its due date. Those will be options that are our last resort. We will be doing all that we can to ensure that we use the cash that we have on hand.
Okay, Councillor Littleton, keep going. Gotta wait until you're unmuted. There you go.
Thank you. Doctor, I heard you say that before. I just meant specifically, and maybe just my question is for informing those who weren't at the last budget committee that was something that we did. And thanks to Mayor Senzik actually for making that motion, that there was 2000 that was not here.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we did have that motion that was approved, and that will be an item that, as we're working through the various departmental situations with regards to their operations and activities that have needed to be paused and those that are needing to continue, and us looking at how we're going to reconcile and balance the city's financial position, the fact that we have those dollars available to us, they will be considered in that analysis.
Thumbs up, Councillor Littleton. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see anybody's hands up on this one, so I will look to the clerk to call a question.
So for the mover, we have Councillor Cisco, and for the seconder, we have Councillor Littleton.
Yes.
So Councillor Cisco,
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento,
Yes.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
Councillor Williamson,
Yes.
Councillor Dodge, Councillor Dodge, Councillor Dodge,
Yes.
Councillor Garcia,
Yes.
Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Councillor Kushner,
Yes.
Councillor Littleton,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Phillips,
Yes.
Councillor Porter,
Yes.
Mayor Sendzik,
Yes.
and that's carried.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Council. I'm looking at 5.1, which is just a motion regarding the next regular meeting of Council. Whereas since the COVID-19 outbreak and provincial and federal emergency declaration, many staff and councillors have been working from their homes. Therefore, be resolved that Council approve the next regular meeting of Council to be rescheduled from Monday, April 6th at 6:30 p.m. to Wednesday, April 8th at 2 p.m. And that it further be resolved that staff provide appropriate notice to the public and the media. Councillor Sorrento, you're moving this. And then Councillor Cisco is seconding. And opening up for questions, Councillor Williamson.
Mayor, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If people are working from home, sometimes they're supposed to be available during that normal workday. So pushing it back a little later in the afternoon might be better for some of us. Just saying.
Okay, Councillor Garcia. Well, I'll come back to that, Councillor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just a couple of quick procedural questions. I noticed the rest of the motion mentions that staff provide appropriate notice to the public and the media. So in relation to that, I did get some questions which I pass on to the clerk with residents that were concerned that the agenda was published in very short notice and that was that sufficient notice. So I believe I'm asking the clerk or the clerk's office if they could just explain that the notice was appropriate, but hopefully in the future we would have more notice. And also, I think for the benefit of council, I'm assuming that we will get the agenda also as before, a week in advance or whatever the target is.
I'll look to the Deputy City Clerk.
So through the chair, for today's meeting, when it's a special council meeting, our procedures require 3 hours notice. Whenever possible, we will provide as much notice as possible. So although the agenda was not published until yesterday, which was Thursday, on Wednesday, our communications team issued a press release, provided information through social media and the city's website to alert the public that there is going to be a meeting on Friday. The agenda will be published. It'll be published on Thursday. But the minimum requirement is 3 hours in that case. Whenever possible, we do provide more notice. If the meeting were to go forward with the Wednesday date as proposed, we anticipate publishing 5 to 7 days in advance.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Garcia. Any other questions? And then I can come back to Councillor Williamson. Any other questions on the time? If I can just ask the CAO, just in terms of the decision for the timing, because there is some rationale behind it, Councillor Williamson, just to give us some context. I'll go to the CAO.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. From a staff perspective, this scheduling was actually more a request from staff. Managing the crisis that we're in right now, many of the senior leadership and the managers are spending a significant amount of time in their days managing this. So we found over the last number of weeks that many of them are spending a good portion of almost 7 days a week working with their staff. There are certainly peaks and valleys, but there are some 10, 12 hours where they're working with and helping their staff along. So from our perspective, we felt if we moved the meeting to a midweek one, then there would be a greater potential for them to have a little bit of time on the weekend where they would not necessarily be working with the conversing back and forth with counselors and with the public in relation to the meeting. We do often have in the advance of a meeting date, we're very busy that day. We're very busy on the weekend, the 2 days before. If we move it to a Wednesday, that shifts us into the week for us. I'm trying a little bit to look after some of our leadership team and needing to give them some definitive times when they feel more comfortable taking some downtime. They haven't really taken a lot lately, but as this extends out, we wanted to manage a little bit of time on the staff's perspective from that. And we felt a Wednesday meeting would perhaps push more of those conversations into the Monday or Tuesday when they're heavy into things anyways.
Okay. Councillor Williamson?
Well, I just want to reiterate that I'm very thankful and appreciative of all the work that staff's done. I know that they've really stepped up and done exemplary work. My only concern was just to have it a little bit later in the afternoon. If e-learning comes back, then we would be expected to be doing that during the normal school day. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Okay. So and I agree with you, Councillor Williamson. So let's hold this date at 2 p.m. If something does come up like that, Councillor Williamson, can you let us know as soon as possible, and we'll figure a way around that. But you are correct. Things are changing quickly. We'll leave this as a marker for council. If something does out of the ordinary, extraordinary come up, there will be a special meeting anyway, either before or after. So hearing that, I'll look to the clerk for a question to call the question.
So through the chair, so for the mover, we have Councillor Sorrento, and for the seconder, we have Councillor Cisco.
Correct.
So roll call, Councillor Sorrento.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Garcia.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Littleton.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Porter.
Yes.
Councillor Cisco.
Yes.
And Mayor Sanders.
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried.
Okay, bylaws, reading of bylaws. We have a motion that the bylaws are listed on the council agenda A to G be read first time, considered and passed, and that they be signed and executed by the mayor and city clerk. And I need a mover on this one. Councillor Williamson?
Almost sent my precarious perch flying here. So moved. And I know it's not on the agenda. I'm just wondering if we could get a report from Councillor Dodge, what's going on with AMO at some point, perhaps through an email message.
Yeah, what I'll do is, why don't we get through this just before we go to an adjournment? I'll go to Councillor Dodge for what she's hearing. So Councillor Dodge, if you can get ready.
Okay.
Seconded by Councillor Phillips on the reading of bylaw. And I'll look to the clerk for recorded vote.
So Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
Councillor Garcia.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Littleton.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Porter.
Yes.
Councillor Cisco.
Yes.
Councillor Sorrento.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Mayor Sanders.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, Councillor Dodge, I think you were on a couple of conference calls so far with AMO. If you just want to give us a bit of a summary what you're hearing.
Absolutely. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so actually, AMO did the same thing this morning from 8 o'clock until 1:35 approximately. And obviously, there's many questions that a lot of people had. Minister Clark did come and join in with us on a conference call. And I'll just give you a few, climate change was definitely on the agenda on people's minds. COVID-19 was definitely discussed in depth in different manners, the cost to different municipalities, about staffing for, municipalities, whether they're laying people off or what they're going to do with employees and how they're going to continue to pay certain things. So there's a lot of questions from all the municipalities on how they're going to move forward with some of those things. And also, being able to do their job as a municipality for the residents was, a concern as well. So that's basically, other than COVID-19 was, the big topic and just the way it's being handled and moving forward, how we're going to meet and discuss different things. So, and they're doing the same thing daily. They send out information to everyone. So everyone's trying to work together, and they're saying that they're getting a lot of help from all levels of government, that everyone's working really well together, and everybody's trying to come up with a way to help with all the financial strains it's putting on, residents, the municipalities, the province, and in Canada in general, and hoping that everyone, stays safe and tries to follow through with all the things to help, moving forward to, combat what we're living with day to day now, hour to hour.
Thank you, Councillor Dodge, because there's going to be a lot of, I think, information coming out of AMO in the next 2 to 3 months regarding what municipalities are doing. So your advice, your updates are going to be important. So thank you for doing that. Thank you, Councillor Williamson, for bringing that up. There just is a question from Councillor before we go towards adjournment from Councillor Cisco regarding 4.3, and I'm not reopening the discussion, but there was a question about conflict of interest, and it's related to, I believe, the education tax deferral, and that would be a provincial decision, it's not a council decision. So council's not deciding to defer that. That was a provincial directive. So you nor Councillor Williamson or anyone else that is associated with would be in this is me speaking, but it is a provincial directive. It wasn't a decision of council. Okay. I'll look to the CAO and just if she can nod and say, yeah, that's correct. Okay, thank you. The only other thing I'll say is I just before we go to adjournment is I want to thank all the council for their support during the last week and a half, 2 weeks. It has been greatly appreciated. And if you're reaching out to members of the community, reaching out to you, and you're looking for staff to help, if you can copy the CAO in any of your emails, having Shelley being able to see what the community is asking of you and what you're asking of staff will, because obviously our staff are very challenged right now. And what we're hoping for is that if you can at least copy the CAO, her and the deputy CAO could manage the expectations of what community may be asking for as well. So I'm just asking again for all of council, if you have a question of a staff member, include the CAO so she can help. I can tell you on the front that I'm on, there's a lot of stress right now from a lot of staff, and the last thing that we all want to do is put more stress on staff if it's not needed at this point in time. So Shelley is the first and foremost willing to put up her hand and say, let it go through me and I'll see what I can do. But with that, I'm just gonna open up is everyone feeling good? And if you're not, reach out to folks that you want to reach out to. I know we're all in this together, and that's all I can keep saying is, and to what Councillor Miller was saying, I think there's a horizon. I think we can, this is gonna, at some point, this is gonna lift based on what we've seen from China and now through Europe and what we're seeing in Canada is that this isn't something that's gonna be out there for for 6-7 months in terms of this stay-at-home thing. But we got to give people hope at some point, and we got to make sure that they see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We may not be able to see it right now, but there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and you're all going to play a role in helping our community get through this. So you're all leaders. You guys have all been elected by the people of our community. So continue to be that leader in our community, and be the eyes and ears of what's going on in your neighborhoods as well. So with that, I'm going to look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Kushner, you're the one who has all the light behind him, so you can't really see it. There you go. There you go.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kushner. And I'll just ask for a seconder on this one, even though we don't normally do it. Councillor Cisco, thank you very much. All in favor, hands up to the screen.
Aye.
There you go. Okay, folks, have a good Friday, and keep in touch with your members of your community. And stay safe, stay home and stay safe. Take care.
Thank you.
Yes,
Great job,
everybody.
everybody.
Take care.
Good job.
Bye,
Great
everyone.
job.
Yeah.
Thank-